ago, it became an activity for some ninth grade teachers to do a scavenger hunt so that kids would get to know different parts of the building. And so now I have seen so many scavenger hunts going on in the building and introductions to me from teachers, but in a nice way, and they're all academic focused. So some of them are, where's the closest bathroom to my classroom? But others are, where is the department chair's office? Things that they may not necessarily see unless a teacher showed them. And so I just thought that was a really, really cool activity that the teachers are doing to make sure that your kids feel not only welcomed in the building, but also that they know where their resources are. The other cool thing that I just saw today was Dr. Nolan, Hannah Nolan, our new superintendent, did her, she's calling residencies, so it was her first residency at Newton North. And so we got to show off some teaching that was going on in the classroom. So, there's a lot of introductory material going on in classes. And just the way in which teachers are building connections, building foundational skills, and beginning content, to me is just, we have grown so much in that space since I've started here, and particularly for ninth graders, this is the way for them to realize that we expect not only them to master the content, but also to learn these really important skills that we know that colleges are looking for, employers are looking for. And so I'll give one example is that we were in a math class, and the teacher put little cubes on each table, and the different cubes had different patterns on it, and they couldn't touch it or move it around, and they were in groups, and they had to figure out what was the pattern, and they had to do some problem solving, build some problem solving skills, but they couldn't see what was on the other sides of the cubes. So they actually had to talk to the people in their groups. So not only were they working on problem solving skills, which is a really important skill for math, and they were building communication skills, which is really critical for math and other classes, and they were working on their listening skills as well. So, and getting to know each other. So I just thought this was like, we're really off to a really, I think, fun start, successful start. And as I said, your kids really impressed us. So this is our welcome to you. This is a more intimate affair than back to school night, where we'll do some introductions. You'll get to hear a little bit about North, and we'll get to answer your questions. This is a little bit of a different format than what we've done in the past years, and I think it's going to be better. The one difference is that sometimes we usually would have all of our counselors here answering your questions. So instead, you're going to get us to answer your questions. But what you're going to get is your counselors are going to set up a welcoming night for you before back to school night, where you actually get to go introduce yourself to them. So specifically for ninth grade and sophomore parents. And so you get more information about that at back to school night. So you'll get to actually see, they typically are not at back to school night because they come to these nights, but you're actually going to get to go talk to them individually. So I think that's a cool change. My only bits of feedback for you to think about is that they have homework. And so if they tell you they don't, they do have homework. So make sure you're checking on them. And making sure that the same routines that you had in middle school, they still continue in high school. Because one of the differences of high school is that they will be with us more than they will be with you, and they will act like they want to be with us more than they want to be with you. And so they probably will not tell you a whole lot, but for high school kids is that, and I remember reading this years ago, and now that I have a 13-year-old, I actually see it even more so now, but the reality is that high school kids need you more than they need you when they were really young. They would tell you how they would need you when they were really young. Now they don't, but when they really need you, they really need you. And so your job is to play sort of like the waiting game, is that, all right, I haven't heard a whole lot in the last month, and then there's some sort of blow up, or there's some sort of crisis, or there's some sort of problem that they can't solve, and they need you to be a problem solver with them. And so just make sure that they have the same routines. Make sure that even though they may not respond to you, or they may gruff at you, or they may yell at you, or they may text you, as what my daughter does to us, that she's hungry, just let them know that what your expectations are for them, so that they know, and they will mostly continue with those routines. Second is that it's important that they get involved here. Is that what we pride ourselves on, certainly we feel like we have amazing teachers, and what sets us apart is that we have amazing extracurricular activities. And the research shows us that any kid, or kids who are more involved in their school do better in school academically. And so we want them involved in clubs, we want them involved in athletics, we want them involved in theater. It is possible to do sports and theater here. That's different than many of us probably experienced in high school, where like there were cliques. Is that while there are certainly groups, is that it's welcoming in all different areas of our school. And so we want them to try something new. We want them to stretch. In college, there's so much pressure to start majoring now, is that this may be one of the last times in your kid's life where they actually try something that they will not pursue as a career. And so it's okay for them to learn an instrument that they've never picked up, or it's okay for them to try out for a team that they may never have played before, and see how it goes. We want them to, and there's places for all kids in this school. And there's places for kids who are competing at the high level or performing at the high level, and there are places for kids who are just getting started. The last thing I will say is that, as I said, this is my 8th year, and I've gotten questions about like, how much longer term are you staying here? So sometimes I see it as a compliment, sometimes maybe not, but no, anyways. The reason why this has been my dream job and continues to be my dream job is that this is a school that is changing the perception of education in this country. This is a school that is committed to making sure that every single kid, regardless of who they are, that every single kid gets what they need, that we challenge them, that they know that we have high expectations for them. And I think in a time where there's a lot of discussion about education, is that we're not being changed by that narrative, we're actually leading the way. And what we have found is that schools are coming to us about, what does your schedule look like? Can you give us more information about your wind block? Because it sounds like it's working really well. And so I think to me, I think it's special about this place that we're at the forefront of thinking about what is it that kids need, and we're continuing to ask that question. What is it that your kids are going to need when they're seniors in high school? We're continuing to challenge ourselves. We're continuing to do the research. We're trying to understand your kids, to see what is it, the things that they need, what do we need to do as a school to evolve for them. And that makes this a special place. We're your partners for the next 4 years. And so, the conversations we have there in their 10th grade, junior year, and senior year will be different, I'm sure. Today is about introductions, and then we'll be talking about a lot of other things that are connected to teenagers over the next few years. But you are in a wonderful place, and I look forward to working with you over the next 4 years. Thank you very much. So I'm going to give a quick introduction, is that this is Amy Winston, our vice principal. You may get more emails from her than me. And she'll describe her role in comparison to mine.
Go ahead. We're having a fireside chat, right? Henry's, yeah. You're up here. Henry wasn't paying attention. I'm Amy Winston. I'm the vice principal here at North. We often say that Henry is the CEO and I am the COO of this large comprehensive high school, but realistically we do pretty much everything together. We're really lucky to have a great partnership, but he is right. I am the primary communicator of North, and you got a text from me today when you got a little confused perhaps about what was going on today. So that's part of my job, is really communicating and also providing access to our families. You might have seen on the first slide, there was an arrow asking folks to choose their language. So tonight's program is actually being interpreted in 6 languages at ASL. So I have my phone running so I can make sure the interpreters are still there while we're running. And our fabulous NNTV students are streaming this evening. So I'm going to pass it off to Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth Swiderskis, and I am honored to be the counseling department chair
here at Newton North High School. And this is my 22nd year.
Hi everybody, I'm Scott Heslin. I'm the Dean for your kids for 9th grade. One thing Amy forgot to mention is she's just like all of you. She's the parent of a 9th grader with us as well. So she's wearing many hats, and obviously things that you're feeling and going through, Amy's going through them with you, so it's great to have her on your side knowing that she's thinking like a parent at the same time as an administrator. So just to introduce myself a little bit, I grew up in New Jersey. I've been at North now for, what were you, 22 years?
I'm 22.
So this is my 21st year then. It's my 3rd class as a dean, so I had the class of 2019, last year's 2023, and now your class of 2027. Something that's been great about working here at North for people that are new, we stay with our kids for 4 years. Our deans, our counselors, our advisories, and really kind of helps make the building feel a lot smaller than it is. And what's great about it is we really get to know each other. So right now, your kids are seeing me mostly as somebody that knows the rules and the discipline and trying to put boundaries and structure in their lives. And then hopefully by the time they're juniors and seniors, they see me as somebody who's been nothing but supportive of them, helping them reach their goals. Same thing for all of you. How many of you are new to North parents? Wow. Okay. I guess that makes sense. People that have been here before probably didn't come tonight. But so same idea, we are also here for all of you and try to help you figure out Newton North and what kind of supports your kids might need. And so I kind of look at the job as the same way. I'll get into what my role, oh, this is my role. There we go. Thanks, Ann. So what I say to the kids all the time, 4 major areas. We talk about academics, emotional support, social support, and behavioral support. And I help oversee that and make sure that happens along with the counselors, the teachers, all the other staff members in the building. So here's just a list of things that I really focus on. I want to start again by echoing what Dr. Turner said. You can hear pin drops in here during our opening day presentations. And it reminded me even back to step-up day last year when the kids were in 8th grade, they were all super quiet in here. Everybody's eyes were up, nobody had their phones on, which is really amazing compared to obviously previous generations where we didn't get to have the same kind of structure with the kids. So the list here, emotional, physical safety, we talk about a lot with our teachers, just making sure if they have any concerns to let counselors and deans know right away. I communicate a ton with parents, so if I ever have concerns, I'll be reaching out to you. Part of my style, just so you all know too, is making sure that the kids, myself, and you are all on the same page with communication. I'm never going to call home unless your kid knows I'm calling home. And most of the time I won't call home unless your kid's in the office with me. Every once in a while I get a kid who's terrified to come in for that call because of what you're going to do at home. But for the most part, I make sure the kids know what's going on with whatever communication we're all having so there's no misunderstandings. Student conduct, obviously any kind of behavioral things. And behavior, using that as a word that doesn't mean like it's necessarily bad, just behavior in general, how you're acting in school, appropriateness, following structures and things like that. That all falls under student conduct, which I also try to help support the kids with. We're going to go through some of these deeper, so I'm not going to talk about all of them. Give me 1 second. And just a little bit more about my background. So I've been at North for 21 years, but this is my 9th year as a dean. Yeah. And the 12 years before that, I was in our special ed department. So I feel like I have pretty good knowledge of diverse learners, different groups of learners, and feel like that's been really beneficial in helping understand where kids are coming from and what they need from us in school. So it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know your kids so far. I guess the most impressive part of the week, last week we had 530-ish kids in the cafeteria for first lunch one day for 45 minutes. And they actually were able to all sit down, be quiet, and hear me in the cafeteria, where we set up rules and things like that, which I'll go over a little bit. But again, just the fact that they're able to come in and be so attentive and pay attention and respectful tells me that this is going to be a really good class, and I'm looking forward to working with all of them. What's next? Neil's House Basics, so this is me still. So Beals House is your school. So Newton North is the big school, Dr. Turner's the big principal. Beals House is for us, for 9th graders, for me. Anytime you have a question, you can always call Beals House. You can email me, you can email Cheryl Stover, our administrative assistant, and we're the people that are going to get you the answers that you need right away. Everything that attendance is this year has to be in writing. That's the Google link. It's also on the bottom of Cheryl's emails that she sends out, so you can access that pretty easy. Anybody who requires an interpreter, we use talking points, and Cheryl can use that as well. And then lastly, this happens a lot. If anybody forgets something at home, and this has happened already, Chromebooks, lunches, things like that, you want to bring it to the Beals House, but please make sure you go to the main office first to sign in so we can get that stuff to your kids. It's not as simple as middle school where we can go to the classrooms and find the kids. You can imagine in a school with 2,100 kids, it's working like a well-oiled machine. So if we follow these protocols, kids will get to know them as well, and it'll be much, much quicker. All right, we're going to welcome the PTSO.
No, I can see from here. Thank you, though. Hi, I'm Jacqueline Freeman, and I'm one of the co-presidents of the PTSO.
I'm Natalia Espinal. I am also a PTO president, and I have a junior and
I have a sophomore and a couple more coming along the way. Great. So, and this is my second year being the PTSO co-president. Natalia's first. And we are going to quickly and take a little bit of your time to just introduce you to what we do, what we are looking for from you, what we hope you find with us, and so on. So, what is the PTSO? We are obviously run by parent volunteers, and I'm going to say that loudly, volunteers, because we would love for more people to volunteer. And we work with the administration and with the teachers and with the students, and we help support all that they do throughout the year. We do lots of things for the teachers, both in the classroom and in appreciation. We do grants for them. We run things for the students. We run things for the parents. There's going to be programs that you can come to and help learn things that, last year we had some interesting speakers, and we'll have more lined up for this year. And I think we can go to the next slide.
so we caught a lot of you outside, but this is our Jews Drive. It's happening right now. It's where it's the biggest and only fundraiser we have. It's not like in elementary school or middle school. We're not asking you to sell anything. Like, this is it. And as you saw in the paper, hopefully, that 82% of the dues goes directly back to the students and all the things that that we need. If you pay a little bit extra, and we get some money to have some flexibility to help different programs also. Anybody who pays by the 22nd enters a raffle to win a $100 gift card to Nita, which is very exciting. And then our next fundraising is the Educational Excellence, and I believe that gets a big announcement at Northside, Porchside. So go to that so you can find out where that money is going.
I'm gonna say at your side, it's the one event that my wife comes to, and she's far cooler than I am.
Never want to be there. And we actually we do have three ways we ask you for money. We covered the first two. The last one is for celebration, which is something that you think right now as a parent of a 9th grader, that's so far away, that's prom, that's senior year. But it's one of these great traditions at North that you kind of pay it forward. By the time your student is a senior, you're going to want to sit back and relax and take photos and enjoy yourself, and you're going to hope that all the 9th grade parents and caregivers are there running the show and donating money and making it a great event. So it seems crazy to ask for that too, but it actually works really well to keep that event going as well. So you can see what, this is just a quick snapshot of last year. It's a pie graph, it's boring. You can see it on the website if you want to. But generally, you'll want to know that we will need most of our money to come from dues. The edX campaign is very specific to that. So if you give money to the edX campaign, which last year was physics equipment, that money only goes to physics equipment. We do not use it for any of the other stuff. Our operating funds come from the dues drive. So that's why we're kind of pushing for that to happen now. We need to know what kind of money we can spend this year when we start giving teacher grants, et cetera, et cetera. And then this kind of shows you, again, this is all going to be online if you need it. This shows you where we spend it. And we spend a lot of money on edX because we raise a lot of money through edX, et cetera, et cetera. So, move on.
So PTSO is for students, but it's also for parents, and we are doing this as a way for you to socialize with other parents. You can also volunteer. Celebration is a huge place to volunteer, but there's also ways to be liaisons, the parent,
The SFA was, yes, there was something just went out in Tiger
yes.
News. Yeah.
If you want to be, to help the students. A lot of this is driven by the students, and we're here to support what they want to do. You are all a member regardless of whether or not you pay your dues.
So we've mentioned this one a lot, North Side, Porch Side. It's because it actually is really, really fun. It's a great way to meet people, connect with people that you might already know. It's Saturday, October 14th. We're looking for you to just come and enjoy yourselves, buy tickets and show up. But we're also actually, if you're brave enough, host one. It's great. It's a great way to have people come over. There's a cocktail party to begin with, and then we all kind of disperse to various houses and enjoy ourselves for the evening. Another great event is Multicultural Night. It is Wednesday, November 8th, and that's in the cafeteria, and as you can imagine, it's just filled with everyone representing different cultures. They have tables, they have food, and it smells really good when you're in there, and it's very tempting, and it's a great way to meet other people and to participate and show up and teach people about your culture.
So we mentioned this a little bit already, that there's lots of different ways that you can volunteer. Celebration is definitely one of them, like we said, class liaisons. You can help set up at any event if you want to join the Multicultural Planning Committee. We are definitely looking for another co-chair for that, and we have a few, if you want to help Northside, Portside, we'd love to shadow the people who are organizing it this year, so that you can participate next year. There's teacher appreciation. If you go on the website, you'll see there are many volunteers, and there's different ways you can volunteer. You can do something that's really big, or you can do something that's really small.
Oh, these are the things that we do for parents and caregivers. So two that we know will have are making the most of your high school years, which Ms. Winston helps us run, and she teaches you all about how you can make the most of your time here. And I went last year, and it's very informative. And then we have another event in April, which you can learn more about on our website. But it's just an example of how we're always trying to bring stuff to the parents and caregivers that might help you like enhance your experience when you're here.
So we send out Tiger News every Tuesday. It's a weekly newsletter. It has lots of information. We try to supplement what goes out from all the other ones. So don't think like, oh, if I read this, it's gonna be the same thing as the other emails that you get. It's very specific to the PTSO, and there'll be lots of links, and it's just very easy to get information. You can also make sure that you are signed up for Membership Toolkit. It's the free online school directory, and you can pay your dues that way also if you haven't done it yet.
And finally, yeah, that's not us. Finally, if you go to our website, you can find our email really quickly. What we really want is to just hear from you. If you have questions, if you're not sure, who to ask us. We'll help point you in the right direction. Again, we'd love to hear, hey, I want to volunteer for something, because we will definitely find something for you to do. And it's different than when your kids were in middle school and elementary school, there are not a ton of opportunities to hang out in the building, to get to know teachers or other parents or staff, or even get a glimpse of your child. So if you get the chance to do one of these events, yes, I would encourage you to do it. It's a great way to feel connected, and when you're connected to the school, I think your student feels that and they appreciate it. So we welcome you and have a great year. Really multitask. So I'm going to go through, no surprise, some logistics of our schedule. I know I've been getting some questions from some new families about our schedule and some different pieces of our schedule. So I'm going to go through a few parts that you've probably been hearing about. So our classes, A through G, meet 3 times a week, once for 65 and twice for 75. You'll notice that on any given day, your student really generally has 4 classes. When we redesigned the schedule way back when, starting in 2019, or 2018, we really focused on the idea that we wanted students to have fewer classes per day, to slow down the pace and slow down the number of homework assignments each night. And so that you'll see that, I think, with your student, very different from their middle school schedule where they were changing rooms every 47 minutes or whatever it was. Our schedule is also Monday through Friday, not a 6-day cycle at the middle school. We don't make any adjustments for Monday holidays. It is Monday through Friday, forever. So we have advisory on Monday. Your students have actually been spending quite a bit of time in their advisories. I actually have a freshman advisory, so I've been spending a lot of time with them as well. And this week, they are going to also be spending some extra time with Mr. Heslin, which I'll talk about in a second. Our advisory is an opportunity to really connect with students, to connect with each other, for them to really have an opportunity to process and talk about events. So for example, yesterday was Monday. In my advisory, I started advisory by asking my students if they had heard about the earthquake in Morocco. And so it was fascinating. I think 95% of them knew nothing, which I thought was really interesting. So before we moved on to the 9/11 moment of silence that we do, we talked a little bit about that and about the ways that North often responds. I got an email today from a student wanting to raise money, the way that our students often respond to disasters around the world. So those are the kinds of things that we do in advisory. We also, is an opportunity every week to support our students in making their win choices. So this week, your 9th graders are going to spend their win blocks with Mr. Heslin. Tomorrow morning, they're going to be in here in the auditorium. Thursday afternoon, we're doing a community project in the cafeteria. And then Friday morning, we'll be back in here. Next Monday, they're going to make their first win block choices. So WIN stands for What I Need, and it is mandatory part of our school day. It is part of our structured learning time. It's part of what we count as instructional time. That said, it is driven by student choice. So I know many of your students had extension in middle school. That was more driven by the adults in the building. As my co-advisor, Mr. Lope, says, as long as your student is taking care of business, they get to make a lot of student choice around WIN. If they're not taking care of business, their WIN choices might be a little bit more directed by Mr. Heslin or their counselor or their teachers. But we really do work to support students in thinking about how to use this time. And it can be to go to the art room and do some art, or to go to the music room and make some music, even if they're not taking an art class or not taking a music class. So there's lots of opportunities. One of the places that fills first every week, which no one would ever guess, is the pool. The most popular WIN selection every single week. Because of the community that that teacher has built in that space for those students to have the opportunity to get some physical activity built into their day. So eventually, we'll encourage your freshmen to try out all the things that are offered during WIN. To start, we're going to ask them to really schedule themselves to meet with their teachers, to get support, to get work done, to start to learn the academic routines. If your freshman is one of the, 300 freshmen that are playing sports this fall, like my child who missed a class or a little bit of class yesterday for an early dismissal. They use WinBlock to be able to make up some of that work, to check in with a teacher. It's a really important part of our schedule and opportunity. And then Tiger Block, it's called Lion on the other side of the city, is actually optional time, flexible time, open campus. It's the one time that Mr. Heslin is not saying you can't go anywhere, right? assuming you're taking care of business. If you have work to make up or you've been late to class a lot, your teacher might ask you to meet with them or to command that you meet with them during Tiger Block. Buses and vans are after Tiger Block. It is still part of our school day, and so students can be required to meet with their dean or their counselor or their teachers. It is when the large majority of clubs meet. We're going to talk a little bit more at the end about extracurriculars. I will say your freshmen have been like hoarding the main, I don't know, swarming the main office, wanting club information. I promise it's coming. We take things a little one step at a time here. Clubs are also very different at the high school than at the middle schools. They are student driven, not adult driven. So it takes a little while to get all the I's dotted and T's crossed. And the last piece I have is the pattern of the year. So our courses, you'll notice your students are taking courses that either meet for a quarter, a semester, or a full year. They have some combination of all of those things. And in terms of academic progress, the communication that we provide to you, progress reports and term report cards. So halfway through the quarter, we will provide a progress report that will have any midterm comments that have been recorded by teachers. It will also have important attendance information about their attendance so far this term in each class. And then at the end of the term, our report cards, also with term grades, also with attendance information.
I meant to put this one step ahead, just so with the schedule, like Ms. Winston said, there's no open campus for 9th graders. Besides the Tiger Block, which really isn't part of the day because it's at the end of the day, Tuesday, and it's really there just for clubs for getting help if the kids need it or they want to, and then there's faculty meetings after that. So once the school day ends at 2:30 on Tuesdays, the 9th graders are free to leave. Other than that, they should never be outside the building. Unless they're with a teacher or a class doing something like that, when they're on their own, they should never be outside the building. There's something called free periods here for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. We don't have substitute teachers. So if a teacher is out, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders are free. 9th graders are not. So they go to the cafeteria, our campus aides are down there, they sign in, they take attendance, they sit there and use it as a study hall. Some teachers and counselors go down to the cafeteria to help check in with kids, see if anybody needs help, but the expectation is if the kids aren't in class, or their counselor's office, or my office, then they're in the cafeteria. Other than that, they don't have the privileges yet of walking around the building or leaving to go to Newtonville, and like I said before, at lunchtime even, they're in the cafeteria for that 30-minute lunch, and hoping that by the springtime rolls around, they'll earn the privilege of eating outside on the patio. So, obviously with a closed campus, the kids have nowhere else to go. The expectation is that they're here. They're in all of their classes, they're here every day. We stress to the kids that just being here is so important to their learning and making sure that they're safe and making sure that they're making progress. The criteria to meet the attendance standard is as long as you miss less than 5 total absences that are excused in a term, you're on pace to earn your credit. We don't award credit at the end of a quarter unless it's a quarter-long class. We don't award credit for semester classes or full-year classes until those classes are over. So it's on a spectrum seeing how the kids are doing throughout those quarters to earn the credit. If a kid, say a kid gets sick and they're legitimately out of school for sick days, there's nothing we can do about it, there's nothing you can do about it. They might have an N on their report card to show they have not met the standard. That doesn't mean they're not getting credit. It's more of a, hey everybody pay attention to this, we need to make sure everything is okay, and that we're making sure the kid has support, and this is just a one-off thing. As long as it's a one-off thing, the kids are going to get their credits and there's nothing to worry about. As soon as I start talking about this in my meetings and compare it to middle school, where kids matriculate, and then here, where you have to earn your credits, the kids' like eyes pop wide open, like, oh my God, this is real, I need to be in school and do everything I need to do. So I would say, right off the bat, it seems like they really understand why it's so important to be here. The other thing I just want to show the difference between total absences and unexcused. I'll come back to that. So excused absences, this is from the school committee now. It's a little bit different. Well, most of you said you didn't have kids here before, but it's a little bit different. Like, we now have a list of what constitutes an excused absence. And I would say in previous years we were a bit more flexible, or we were allowed to be. But now we're being told these are the reasons a student can miss school. So if any of these reasons are why your child cannot come in, they're excused from the day or the class. Things like these, family vacations, we're working on a college visit policy at the school level, extended travel after breaks, before breaks. These are all unexcused absences. We still appreciate you letting us know where your kid is. That way we can tell the teachers that even though like they're on vacation, the kids are still going to be allowed to make up their work and earn their credits and not have penalties for being out of the country at a family vacation or something. But according to the school committee, which is their interpretation from the state, it doesn't fall into this list of what's excused. So going back to this attendance standard makes people wonder, like, well, if we do this and we do this, what happens if we get too high? My answer to that right now is just please communicate with me. We'll figure it out along the way. I've already had a couple students miss about 4 or 5 days because of family reasons, and I'd say the same thing to them. It's unexcused in the computer. I know where you were. You're going to be able to make up your work. Let's just see how things go as we move forward. Procedures for attendance, that contact the house office, Bill's house that we put up before. Please try to do it by 11 a.m. Part of the reason is we start sending phone calls home at noon if we haven't heard from a family. And then after we run a second report, we send another phone call home at the end of the school day so you can see which classes your student may have missed or if there's mistakes in the reporting of the absences. Again, everything needs to be in writing, whether it's the Google form, an email to Cheryl Stover, talking points, or the old-fashioned, write a note, send it in with your kid, and we can take care of it that way. Aspen, our system, is we will put the reason for the absences so teachers know whether it's excused or unexcused, or if it's a legitimate unexcused reason that they can make up their work for. And Beth, I'm going to pass it over to you. Beth's going to talk a little bit about some of our resources and supports.
Hi, everybody. So, when we shift over to support, we talked about wind blocks and tiger block. So, when we talk about support, because there's another slide that's going to show about counseling and all of that, but pretty soon work is all going to be, afloat. Kids are going to be getting that homework that we said they will have. And so, high school is the big leagues and that kind of thing. So, when our students start to struggle, and some very well may, we work off of a design called multi-tiered system of support. And some of you, or many of you may have heard about that, NTSS. Within that system of support, there's tiered levels of interventions. Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Tier 1 is for every single student in our building, in our entire class, and there's multiple ways that they can get automatically this Tier 1 support. That is everything from the classroom environment, where teachers let everybody know what the objectives are and making sure that they are comfortable within the class. They are very clear about their expectations. If they need certain help with, a project, and that they're having that kind of classroom environment support, Tier 1 is where they can get all of that. They can get Tier 1 if they see their counselor. They can talk to their dean. So as students may struggle, things then become a little more targeted. And Tier 2 is what we consider more of a targeted intervention. And as you can see in these Tier 1 interventions, peer tutoring, guided studies before and after school programs. So for example, peer tutoring, we have a student who's struggling, let's say, in history. And we have a wonderful program coordinated by one of our history teachers, Jamie Ball. And there is a referral being made to say, during a wind block, to be paired up with an upper level student who's taken the history course. That also fosters a nice relationship, and that's going to be another Tier 1 intervention that any student can be referred to.
And there's information about how to get all of that, and we'll be sending all that out if we haven't already. I don't know. Another type of, now, some of your children are in directed studies. On average, that can be 25 kids in a directed study. So a different type of level or intervention is called a guided study. And that is a lot less students with teachers that are more focused on structuring a study to make sure that students are getting a little more help, a little more hands-on when it comes to that study hall. So students can be referred to that as well. And then we also have a before-school program and an after-school program. Again, any student can be referred, and that's also if there's a particular subject or subjects that they need more focused help with. They make a referral, and they are matched up with a teacher within the before-school or after-school program, depending upon their schedules, and that is the types of Tier 1 support for any student to get. Do I go to the second one now? Not yet, okay. So then, a type of Tier 2 support is something, let's say that we have an SEL group, Tiger Trails, for example, and that is a different level up. It's not for every single student that may need that, so that is something that they would get referred to. Whether that is they need help organizationally, and they've tried a lot of systems within the classroom environment with the teacher's help, there may be a WIN dedicated to some executive functioning help. So the tiers continue to kind of ramp up as a student's needs need to be met more individually. Tier 3 is beyond that, where it is very much one-on-one, individual, whether it's emotional or academic, and then that we have the data that backs us up and making sure we're always in communication with our families to make sure that we're doing everything we can to meet those individual needs. So those are the types of things as we talk about what are resources and supports for students, at least from that academic perspective and getting into the emotional. You'll get all that information, I'm sure. Okay. Communication.
I'll be very good.
He's going to communicate quick.
It is true, you're going to get a lot of communication from us. And what I was really excited to hear at our first principal meeting in August is that the district is working to purchase software that is for families. It'll be family-facing, and it will store pretty much all school-related communication onto one site for you. So that whenever you need to go back and read, I think remember Amy sent this, you'll be able to go and find that email. So I think you will all be very happy about that. Yes, exactly. You definitely give a round of applause. I know that will feel good. So you are going to get a number of different ways in which you're going to get communication from us. Amy's emails are always logistics, okay? This is what's going on in the school. These are important reminders, and she will also put reminders in the bottom part of the email as well if you forgot it the week before. But every week she will send you a newsletter. You will get communication from Beal's House. That information is primarily class-related information. When I communicate, you'll get about monthly newsletters from me that are just more updates, what's going on in the school life, any important topics that are going on in the school, and then any sort of urgent kind of communication will come from me as well. And so we do it that way so that you know that Amy's emails are always going to come. You know that if you have a question, go and search for Amy's emails. If you see an email from me, read it right away because it's going to be more urgent and more, it's something that is going on in the school that you should be aware of. If you get something from Beal's House, it's something that's related to the class. It could be from activity that's going on for the class to something that's more around an assembly like this or as we start getting to college planning. And then we have your student Schoology. Every teacher is using Schoology. Every teacher is communicating through Schoology. So if you have a question, you want to make sure you have access to your student Schoology, and you have your parent portal for Ask Them, which you can check attendance and grades and all that for them. That's it.
Just wanted to point this out. I showed it to all the kids. I don't know if any of them actually did it. On our school website, if you go to the upper left corner where it says Our School and you just hover over it with your mouse, the drop down comes down, the rights and responsibilities booklet and the student handbook. The student handbook especially has everything, all the information that kids need to know. Something as simple as like how many bathrooms are there on certain floors, or where are important locations in the school, or information about open campus and earning that privilege. So just something that you guys should be aware of, and if you have questions too, you can look through the handbook and find everything you need probably.
All right, I am back. Okay, so a little bit also about the communication is that it is two-way. And when there are things that you are questioning about, that you want to find out about, and it is specific about a particular class, you're more than welcome to email a teacher. There's been a perception, I'm going to say it sometimes in the community, like, maybe I don't want to bother the teacher, or burden the teacher, or this. You're more than welcome to do that, okay? If there's some clarification that you need. That being said, yep, and then I'll go into the counselor's report. You're definitely more than welcome also to email the counselors. What we look for, though, is about a 48-hour turnaround time for responding. And that's basically, you know, because by the time someone's teaching all day long, they've had to read the email, you know, in order to get out. So I just want to kind of lay that out there. If you do not hear from an educator here at Newton North, and, you know, within the hour or the next, you know, very next day, at least by 48 hours within 2 days, that's when, if you don't hear back from somebody, then it may be time to kind of escalate or send another message. But we really are working off of what's a reasonable response time frame, and we just want to set the stage very clearly right in the beginning. Because there's a certain amount of emails that come to educators here, a lot, like a lot. And that being said, if there is something that you want to communicate about your child that is personal in nature and you want to get in touch with the counselor, you absolutely can email the counselor. You can give them a call on their phone, and we have who all the counselors are on their bio pages on the website. I think by this Friday, every counselor is expected to put out a welcome letter to the caseload of their students on their freshman caseloads, letting them know who they are, how to get in touch with them. A lot have appointment books through appointment calendars through Google. And so we just want to make sure that that communication flows back and forth in a very reasonable manner. So the next thing is about the type of support that you can expect your children to get. And one of those type of support is their school counselor. They're going to have their school counselor for all 4 years. And we really feel that that continuity of care is very, very important, because as they start off in 9th grade, they are completely different people by the time they become seniors. And we love seeing every single year of transition and all the things that they get involved with and what they want to do and how they grow academically, social emotionally, and preparing them for their future planning. And just letting you know how to get in touch with the counselors. That information has been sent and you can get it on the website. The thing is that you know your children better than anybody else. And so there are going to be times, although the counselors do everything they can in their judgment to get to know the students and meet with them, don't hesitate to let us know if there's something going on that you think that we should know, so that we can be supportive as much as possible. That being said, if your child does come home and they are disappointed, or they're upset about something, not crisis-wise, but something, what I told the freshman class last week, a week and a half ago, is help them try to manage that, and it's okay to sit with that discomfort, and not necessarily as the parent, pick up the phone immediately or bang out that email. Give them time and support them with empathy and say, oh, well, have you thought about this? And really foster that independence. It goes very, very far. That self-advocacy is instrumental in how these children are going to grow up to these young adults and be really successful. But we've also found that there are times when students I'll be like, do you want me to do that for you? And then somebody no, I got this. It's amazing. So we just want to make sure that we're really encouraging them to really find out who they are as individuals and have that theme throughout what they want to do here at Newton North High School. And the other types of support that we offer, they're going to be freshman seminars, for example. So starting the week of October 9th, I want to say, in WIN blocks, every freshman is going to be meeting in a small group with their school counselor. They're going to get to know them, they're going to know about their role, how to find them, also connect with their other peers, and really get a lot of information regarding the resources and how they are going to proceed through the freshman year. We also have, with the WIN blocks, a lot of wellness WIN blocks. So we really support SEL, social and emotional learning. I also told the freshman class, we never want a student to suffer in silence. We take mental health very, very seriously. And there's not a question that's not worth asking. And so if someone is worried about themselves, or they're worried about a friend or a peer, they shouldn't hesitate to go to any trusted adult, and because they're new to the building, they may not know who these people are yet, right? But we want to make sure that they have some early connections made. And we want to foster that in order to make sure that we are not paying attention to those who really need the attention at that particular time. There's also other WIN blocks by some adjustment counselors, stress management groups, coping skills groups, a Tiger Trails group that really has, it's like a 9-week, not like, it is a 9-week group that has a structure in it about coping skills and making sure about reflection, that students can also, it gets paired up with one of our school psychologists as well. And these are all for the taking for all of our students. There's support up the wazoo, and that's what we're really proud of. Getting involved, is that you?
I think that's me.
Oh, that's you. Back at you, Henry.
As I said, we want your kids involved. That's all I got for that one.
Yeah. Can I say one thing about that though? Like, okay, with that being said, there's not one particular timetable. So I don't want people to feel like, oh my gosh, if you don't join 10 million clubs right now in this term, all is going to be lost. It's really hard at times to have that social confidence for a student at times to come in and say, I'm going to join this. So give them some time. The timetable may not match exactly what the parents want or see for them, for the children. It will happen over time, but also you can reach out again, and we love going through the club list with our students. So just making sure there's not one exact timetable, but it will get there eventually. If they need a little bit of a push, we're happy to help in that area.
And as I think as we start to transition to answering your questions, is that to Beth's point, is that if your child is having a hard time trying to figure out what to do here, we are here for them. So asking your counselor or asking a teacher, just small things, but we do want them involved. And I will say that the coolest things we see are certainly, the big performances are amazing to see, whether it's on an athletic field or here. But to see like our lighter bots wearing their team uniform when they go to a robotics competition, like that's really cool. Or when our kids go on exchanges, when they're in Spain and they're all wearing Newton North sweats in the middle of Florence, where everyone else is fashionable, but they're wearing sweatpants. Like, that is fashionable. That spirit, we want them to feel that spirit of the school. It's one of the special aspects. So we'll stop there with our presentation. We know we just gave you a lot of information. Know that you don't have to have all this information memorized. You will learn it. Your kids are learning it. So we want to make sure you're familiarized with all of the stuff that's here. But what questions do you have that we can answer for you? Scott is here. I'm here to pass the mic for you.
I have a question on the excuse and unexcused absences. So this is specifically where in sports. My son gave us fencing in Dynamo, and that does involve competitions and whatnot, so how do you manage that? And when I spoke with the coach, he said to speak with the school, there's some precedence or something.
Great question. So that's actually where we've gotten the most questions related to this new attendance change. So I was a competitive swimmer for a club team, and I missed a lot of school because of that. I still do well in school, but that is one of the challenges. So under this new policy, those do count as unexcused absences. So to Scott's point, similar to the family pieces, that we will monitor it. Like if but we also want the coaches need to know, because some coaches, private teams may have been used to us always excusing it. We are no longer doing that. And so the competitions that they go to, they really need to be more judicious about which ones they are going to. And I would just say making sure that you're working with the House office around that. And just so that people have clarity about what unexcused means is that getting a you did not meet the attendance standard for 1 quarter, there's no punishment at all. For students who we know who are deliberately missing class because they don't want to go to class, there are consequences for those students, but there's actually no academic loss of credit. It's once it starts to build that there is a bigger consequence to it.
I'll just add to that, unless it's a 1 quarter class. So for 9th graders, that's all of our freshman PE, our sexual and health classes, and some electives. So if your kid's taking a 1 quarter class, it could end up with no credits for
So
the
the
quarter.
short answer is just make sure you're working with Scott
Yeah.
around it, and and we will figure out a way for it. We know this is a big change for families. It's new this year. That vacations, any Newton North sports are excused, but any other club team is not excused.
It's new to Newton this year. It's
New
been
to
in the
Newton,
state, it's been the state law for a long time. Most districts, if you talk to any other high school, has had this in place for a very long time.
We were audited by the state, and this was one of their findings, is that we were excusing this. So we know it's a big change for us, and it's a big change for you.
Could you discuss how math is being taught? Because so many of us are new to high school, and I feel like there used to be like track math, and there's no longer track math or something, or like, could you talk about that?
So we have levels at math at high school, so that is different than for some of you in middle school. So we have 4 levels. We have college prep, advanced college prep, accelerated, and honors. In 9th grade, we have 2 courses that have 2 levels at each course. So our college prep and advanced college prep, those students are going to be in the same classroom. Students who are taking accelerated and honors, they're going to be in the same classroom. And so the teachers, so what this has, why we have done this over the last 6 years is that we were experiencing a lot of students, particularly in 9th grade, say in accelerated, saying, I'm ready to do honors. And we'd say, all right, well, we have to move your schedule, and that means you have to miss this elective, you have to drop this elective, you have to miss this teacher that you really like, you have to blow up your schedule. This fixes that. And what we have found is that not only are we seeing that more students are taking advantage of moving up a level, which is what we want, but they're actually doing quite well in those classes because of it, particularly in sophomore and junior year. And so we have levels. Students are graded at the level. What is, I think scuttlebutt of some people in the community is that we have what people are calling multi-level courses, which is that students who are taking for honors are with students who are taking it for accelerated, and students who are taking it for advanced college prep are taking students who are taking it for college prep. And so the difference within the course is the amount of work, the depth of the kind of content, and some of the expectations in terms of the quality of the work. And so that's the case in math. You'll experience some of those kind of courses in sophomore year in history and English as well. So here.
What is discovery law or something like that?
Discovery?
Exploratory?
Oh, exploratory.
Sure. Do you want to answer?
I can answer. So we are Chapter 74 Comprehensive High School. Exploratory classes are those classes that are the entry points into our career and technical education programs. We offer exploratories in each of our career and technical education programs, so from culinary to automotive to TV. Those courses are primarily open to 9th and 10th graders as their entry point before students decide to major in those areas. In other school districts, kids have to go to Minuteman, kids have to go to Assabet to get that same kind of experience. It's one of the things that I have always loved about Newton North is that we're a comprehensive high school and students can stay here, still have that Newton North pride, and major in a career and technical education program.
What's the process for kids to communicate with their counselor?
And are there predetermined meetings every year, every semester?
So the process, so each counselor, so from a school counselor perspective, there's 13 of us. And so the counselors are, other than myself in the counseling department office, they're all over the building. And so it's pretty much, what's great is that it's like, there's no stigma. When kids want to go see their counselor, they can go up to their office and they can see if they're there. If a counselor's not available, then the student should leave a note, whether it's under their door or on their, everybody's dry erase board or bulletin board, so that they know that the counselor would like to, that they want to meet with their counselor. Counselor then will follow up and make sure that they meet with the student. Also, counselors have their own appointment book, so it's not just one department that they come in and then everybody gets their appointments done by their administrative assistant. That's for me, but for all of them, they run their own offices. So the counselors respond to email, they respond to Schoology messages, and some will have a QR code also on their, whether it's a Google Calendar or Calendarly, just to make it as accessible as possible. In the Newton North website on it, in the counseling department, there says counselor bio pages. And a student knows who their counselor is by looking at their schedule, with their name, last name, and then they could look, and in that bio page will say where their office is, their phone number, their email, and some fun facts about them. If there's any question of how to get in touch with them, you could always call the counseling office, myself and also my administrative assistant, just to make sure that the counselor knows the student's looking for them. You're welcome.
And I guess somewhat related to that, could you explain a little bit, could you give a little bit more detail on that when we were going through that kind of tier 1, tier 2 support? Like how does a kid or student qualify, or how does that process work?
Sure. So because we, have really built in and leaned into this multi-tier system of support, we actually have a wonderful interventionist and an intervention coordinator. Because, there are things that we put values on. We want to make sure that any struggling student is definitely going to be at the top of the list for the type of attention that they need. So we also can work off of some data and report cards. So for example, midterm comments come up. We're going to be reviewing those and saying, okay, where are some comments that are more that we need to pay attention to? And then we can check in with the kid and say, oh, are you struggling with organization? We can make a referral to that EF win. Are you struggling, with attendance? We want to make sure to get down to the brass tacks of what's going on. Then we also look at report cards and review them every single term. And so every midterm and every term, there's data that we will then review. And then from that, counselors and deans work very closely together to make sure that we are talking about the types of students that we'd like to refer, and we're also reaching out to parents and caregivers to make sure that we're all on the same page. That also goes to both ways. If you're seeing things at home and you're like, they're struggling getting that homework done, I don't really know, they don't really have an organization plan, reach out, and then we can also say, oh, are they ready for this type of intervention that is going to meet their particular needs? Does that make sense?
Yeah. One important thing is the teachers are in that loop as
Sorry,
well.
yeah.
The teachers make observations in class, student is struggling. Oftentimes teacher will send email to all the other teachers of that student. I'm observing this, are you seeing this? How are you supporting the student? So they try to collaborate together, that's part of tier 1. And then usually the counselor is like, oh, I've heard the student is struggling from 3 different teachers. I need to be diving in sooner than midterm comments, right? So our folks, one thing that is, I think, very special about this building is the way that adults communicate with each other around supporting kids, whether that be the dean or the school counselor or the classroom teachers. The classroom teachers are seeing your kids more than your school counselors. So it's a lot of communication and checking in with each other to really find and target how and when we can get support to kids as quickly as possible.
And I'll just lastly say that I know as a parent that sometimes you get messages from school that say, we don't really want you to communicate with us until parent conferences. We are not that school. And so if you have a worry, we want to hear from you. We do want we want you to encourage your kids to advocate for themselves. But if you have a question, like the counselor's the right person, our teachers will respond to you, Scott will respond to you. So we do want you, if you have a worry, if you have a concern, we want you, particularly if it's a question that your kid has, we want you to right away reach out to Google Any other questions?
You have a lot of work to do.
Just a quick question about cell phones.
Yes.
What's the philosophy or policy on
Did you ask your child about it? Because they have a lot of opinions about this.
So I will, this is not to mock our 10th grade class because we love them as well, but the difference between as Scott described, we described your students the first day of school, when we showed the wall pockets that are now in every single classroom for the cell phones, our sophomores booted. There was like a wide boo of the wall pocket cell phones. I yelled back at them and said, that's called addiction. So anyways, the cell phone policy is that students may not use their cell phones in the classrooms. And so we now, through a state grant, we're able to purchase, we had them in many classrooms, and now we'll have them eventually in every classroom this year, that there'll be pockets for students to put their phones on the door, and they don't need to use them. All of your kids have laptops that they can use. There's just not a need for them to use the device. I'm a technology person. I believe in technology. I also believe it's healthy for your kids to walk away from their cell phones for a bit. So they can use it during the hallways. In the hallways, they can use it during lunch. I think most advisories are letting them use it. So there are times for them to check their Snapchats or their TikToks. But there are, but during class time, they are away from it. They don't love that policy. I was actually asked by an SFA member what students were on that committee to create that policy, and I responded, none.
But Henry, sorry, that's not a new policy. It's not like it could
It's always
be,
been a
that's not a new policy. It's pockets. So that's not brand new for this class to think, oh, woe is us. Now we're coming into it. They never could use their cell phones during class time.
The pockets and talking to the kids about it has really changed kind of the culture where helping the kids understand it's not because we don't want them to have their phones, it's really to eliminate any distraction from paying attention in class and learning. And even when we explain it to the kids, you can kind of see it in their minds like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense. So it's definitely the same policy we've always had. We now have some tools in place to help them adhere to that policy, and instead of trying to hide their phones under the desk and things like that, it just goes away and then they don't have to think about it.
And I'll just give a quick shout out that Rob Greenfield, who's our history teacher, he teaches digital literacy as a senior elective where students actually learn about the impact of technology in our society. Cell phone use is one of those ways, but he actually does workshops for our students. He does a workshop for parents as well on digital literacy, so something to check out.
And the win block that Amy was talking about before, the kids are going to be with me tomorrow. They're actually going to be with Rob. And Rob is doing a whole talk about social media, cell phones, digital literacy for all the 9th graders tomorrow morning. So make sure you check in with them when they get home from school and see what they learned from it.
I was going to say, don't ask them about it now. My 9th grader was not very excited when I told her what she was going to learn about tomorrow. Ask them tomorrow night, because I have to say, I watched Rob's presentation last year. We had him do it for every grade, and I learned a ton, and he does a really good job. It's very engaging. But they'll probably, if they know what the topic is, they're going to walk in going, no, I don't want to be here. But he does an awesome job, so ask them about it tomorrow night.
Just to tell you, he begins the presentation with saying, we're not here to tell you don't use your cell phones. You've probably seen me on stage on my phone. I'm looking at the presentation in my speech here. Like, we all use them. It's more about the appropriate times to use them. Question back there.
I just wanted to quickly check with the tier support system. I'm assuming there's no cap, but I'm just checking because in middle school there was. You're like, oh, like 10%, so one kid can do it.
No. No cap.
Everyone's welcome.
Down here.
I have a question about if a teacher is absent and the kids get an email or they know that the teacher is not going to be there. If it's the first block or the first class of the day or the last class of the day, are they still expected to be in direct study? Is that what it's called? Or no, sorry, it's in the cafeteria, right?
So I'll give you
The technical answer.
the technical answer. Yes, they're expected to be here for the first period class. They're expected to be here at the end of the day. I would say, in my experience, we've had people call and say, my kid's not feeling well, they'll be there for second period. I would ask that you don't do it for the end of the day, especially because so many kids do activities here after school. And what we've seen is parents call and say, hey, my kid has a canceled class, they're not feeling well, they're gonna come home. And you can imagine the kids are just hanging in the hallways, or they're leaving campus and then coming back with drinks and food. And then it looks like they were just off campus, not following the rules. So I'm not gonna tell you that you can do morning and afternoon, but as a parent myself, I understand where you're coming from. The kids on Schoology get the list of all the absent teachers every morning before they come here. So they can say like, oh look, my A-block teacher is out. I might not feel well right now. And it's an excused absence, but don't call and say, the teacher's not there, my kid's not coming. That's unexcused.
What I'll also say is that this was actually the #1 question I got from 9th grade parents last year, because it is a big shift that we don't have substitutes. We haven't had substitutes at high school for about 15 years, maybe more than that. And we don't have enough substitutes to cover all of the canceled classes that we have. And I'll also just remind you of your substitute teacher when you were in high school. If you just remember the quality that you sometimes get with substitute teachers. And so what we do have now is that because of our one-to-one devices, that teachers have on Schoology what the assignments are. So students are in the cafeteria, they know what to do. And so, teachers are absent. We don't, it's not abnormal. We don't have an abnormally high number of teachers absent, but we are a big school, and so teachers are absent. We also do know, because of our new schedule, one of the nice things about it is that there are fewer blocks in the day, which means less homework. But if they have 2 teachers out, it feels like none of their teachers are here. And so that's been something I think families are experiencing before in comparison to our old schedule. But I would just say that there is work for them to do, there's been I've gotten a lot of questions like, will we, fund substitutes? The number of substitutes we would need to fully fund to this building is a lot of money, and that's not the #1 thing that I would replace because we're understaffed right now.
I taught here when we had substitutes, and the ratio of times that I prepped lessons versus actually had a substitute versus the substitute actually did what I asked them to do was probably pretty tiny, so it was not really worthwhile.
One other thing I thought of with the question about calling out for a block or so, anybody that's participating in a sport or a club or theater, things like that after school, if you're not here for a certain amount of blocks, you're ineligible that day. So if the kid has come to cancel classes, they're better off being here, signing in the cafeteria, and being present, so they're actually in school. That's an MIAA rule that we've also adopted for our other programs within the building. The kids need to be here in the building if they're going to participate after school.
Question here, and then here, and then
One teacher gave us a guideline of 1 to 2 hours a week of homework for that course. Is that a reasonable expectation across the curriculum?
So we have been, so a few years ago, we tried to norm our expectations around how much homework students should do. One of the hard parts about it is the pace at which students do the work, and sometimes the distractedness that some of our students have. But I think 1 to 2 hours is appropriate. Again, what we saw in our old schedule is that we had kids that would be up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning because of the homework they would do for that night before, the next day. Now, because we have, as you saw in the schedule, we have fewer blocks within 1 day. Kids actually have more time to get their homework done. And so we have seen a big reduction of that kind of concern, kids staying up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, which just wasn't healthy at all. So I think 1 to 2 hours a week is probably, per class is probably fair. So I'd say a couple of caveats to that. That some are not necessarily 9th grade related, but wind block, if they use their wind block to get work done, then they may have less homework to do. So I think some parents saw that, like, my kid doesn't have any homework, and they did it all during the day. It's like, well, they did it during wind block. So that's very useful for, the fencing person. That's really helpful for those kids who have big expectations. My daughter's at dance till 9 o'clock at night some nights. So wind block would be really helpful for her. Secondly is that study for tests, you should be doing that regularly, not just the day before the test. And projects. Like projects you should be doing the night before the the days too, right? So those things don't necessarily count when teachers say 1 to 2 hours per week, and so that might be on top of it. As you start to think about sophomore year, there will be more access to honors level classes. We recommend that students take no more than 3 honors or AP classes. We have many students who bypass that recommendation, and those students know that that means that there's going to be a lot more homework in those classes and happening soon. So those are just things to be mindful of. We have one last question here.
I just wanted to ask as a follow-up question on the blocks when the teacher is absent. The rules apply as on the wing block. I guess my question is, if the teacher is out, the child has to stay in the cafeteria, they can go and do like ceramics or like, you know, go to the library and do something else.
There's a couple things that they can do. One is they can go to the cafeteria. The other thing they can do is that Win Block, every day Win Block locks, the MyFlex Learning locks up. I forget what the exact time is. 1 hour before the block. So they could sign up and change their Win Block before, if they know ahead of time the teacher's absent. If they just find out right when the teacher, right when the Win Block happens, they can go to the house office, someone can help them to get them into a Win Block that may be open.
So the absence list is posted each morning between 8:15 and 8:30. The earliest win is at 10:20. So that means MyFlex closes at 9:20. So they have time to reschedule themselves to someplace else when they see that the teacher that they had scheduled for win is not there. If they don't find someplace else to go, they're going to go to the cafeteria just like any other, and they'll get signed in and attendance and all that there.
If you follow Instagram, typically there's a student who posts the absence list on Instagram. So that's a helpful Instagram to follow. Another one is Zizi Ahmed is one of our seniors. She takes all of Amy's newsletters and whittles it down into one Instagram post. That's a really helpful Instagram post.
She doesn't have as much time on her hands anymore.
That's true.
So she doesn't do it as often.
The third one is North Learns, which is a celebration of all the great things going on in our school. So it's at North Learns on Instagram if you're interested. So this was a lot of information. Know that you don't have to have it all memorized. If you forgot something, just reach out to us. You are our partner. We want you in the school. We want you to come visit. We want you to participate in the things that are going on in the school. I hope that I get to see you at Northside Dining in a couple of weeks, or Northside Portside, and we get to socialize together. This is going to be a wonderful experience for your kids. This is a special place, and look forward to getting to know you more. Thank you so much, everyone.